for that. Now, let's move on to, well, the question is, Debbie, are we ready for war?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, and that is the question. And what brought me to this question actually was the NHS board meeting last week. Now, it hasn't been published yet on YouTube, but I'm a bit impatient and I like to look at the board papers. And there were a number of board papers that interested me. But we've all become used, haven't we, to emergency drills. The NHS is completely overwhelmed, as we know, too many patients, not enough beds. Are we ready for war? And earlier on this year, Brian featured this report, UK Parliament Ready for War, with a big question mark. And in the next slide, you'll see that the report was formalised at the House of Commons Defence Committee. It was formalised 2023-2024, just this year. But Sky News have been asking the same question, actually, as I've been asking, which is the UK preparing for war amid threats of conflict? And what did they find out? Now, just remember, this report was only on the 3rd of April, so it's recent. So what did Sky find out? Well, they found out that according to leaked reports, there's going to be an exercise next week, our 2-day war game, which is going to take place involving the Ministry of Defence, the Cabinet Office, and the Home Office. And if we go on a little bit further into their report, we can see that Keith Deer, who's a former intelligence officer and advisor to Boris Johnson, actually says the problem is there is no plan. So do the NHS have a plan? And that's my next question. And the NHS board meeting last week brought up their annual emergency preparedness, resilience and response assurance report. So I thought, well, you've got to go and have a look in that. Obviously, it's an annual update, so we're not presumably looking at anything too much in the near future. However, let's just dissect it a little bit. So disruptive threats, they're looking at weather, infectious disease, major transport accidents, or a terrorist attack. And what I found a little bit alarming was that they're kind of bragging that 370,000 people will be supported by an integrated primary and community mental health service this year and for next year. And my concern is that actually we shouldn't have that many people that need mental health support. But we've got a new NHS resilience team, and we're going to be reviewing the operations. But operations for what exactly? Well, we seem to be looking at mass casualties, burns annex, pandemic, hazardous materials, managing contaminated individuals who present to healthcare. We'll come on to that in a minute. And other NHS buildings. Now, I'm not quite sure what these other NHS buildings actually are. Perhaps they're the Nightingale hospitals, I'm not sure. But clearly you can see that there's going to be implementation of new standards in relation to ambulance services, chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear support to acute trusts. But the other thing I found in their report was that they were talking about energy disruptions. So they're talking about energy supply chain disruptions. But I've just highlighted it there in red because it's slightly different from other reports they've brought out, which is indicating that we may be looking at long duration power outages. Now, I don't know what those long duration power outages exactly are. Perhaps they're going to be extreme weather. Maybe that's what they're going to be focusing on. But what are they basing their modelling on? Why are they doing all of this preparedness now? So here are some of the things that have happened in the last year or so. So they've been looking at the coronation. They said that on May the 23rd, there was a big health input. They needed a lot of coordination. The knife marauder in Nottingham has given them something else to model on in June 23. Then there was a BT technical fault, which meant that people couldn't contact 999, and there were actually 11,500 calls that were impacted before BT could back up the systems. And then if we move on to September 2023, we can see that they're looking at RAC. They're using RAC as a modelling tool. That's the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete. We've seen that in public buildings and schools and some hospitals. Also, they're looking at the car park fire in Luton. If you remember, we were looking as to whether that might have been caused by an electric vehicles. Also, suspected hijacked aircraft. Nothing actually happened on that incident, but they treated it as a major incident. But then we're looking at November 23, more incidents that they're modelling on. So we've got a water supply interruption. And then, of course, this year, we were looking at that big launch of the measles incident MMR campaign. So they're wanting to uptake on vaccinations, and they consider that a major incident. And then finally, we're looking at 2023 and 2024 carbon monoxide in Lincolnshire poisonings, and even in our very own home county of Devon in Plymouth, they're looking at modelling on the World War II bomb that was recently found in someone's garden. Now, this is all taking place with a tripartite of partners. So we're looking at the NHS, the Department of Health, and the UK HSA. And NHS England have now revised this programme, which is going to be implemented in autumn 2024. But who's going to be doing these exercises? The NHS is overwhelmed. We haven't got enough staff. So I found this paper from Cambridge. Can live actor patients in a mass casualty incident exercise benefit as exercise players? And if you look at the discussion there, it says on the next slide, it'll say that it's imperative for staff to know what to do to respond. However, globally, there don't seem to be enough resources. There's not enough staff within the health services to be able to be released to do these exercises. So who does these exercises? Well, look no further than CrisisCast. And CrisisCast, they carry out simulations of incidents. So for the UK, the Middle East, and well, actually globally, worldwide, but they're looking at, they work with schools, with local authorities, they work with shopping centres, media, military, criminal justice, government, private security firms, you name it. But who are CrisisCast? And CrisisCast actually are the learning and development consultancy, which is another segment all of its own. And also there you can see the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, Army Be the Best, and Cyber Essentials. Now, Cyber Essentials are a UK certification scheme which shows how an organisation has got protection against any kind of cyber attack. So the clients, long list of clients here, very interesting clients. You've got the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, the Ministry of Defence, G4S, Sussex Partnership NHS. That's interesting because that's where our very own Stephen Lightfoot, who is chairing the MHRA board meetings for so long, he's still chair. Bournemouth Uni, Open University, British Army, and ADS, who kind of a talent spotter in aerospace, defence and security, the UK Parliament and Securitas. And just to finalise this segment and highlight that mass casualties are definitely on the agenda, and it's asking more questions, I think, than answering. But of course, the WHO have got their finger in the pot too. So if you want to find out more, mass casualty management system document from the World Health Organization.
Okay, thank you for that, Debbie.